One of the most underestimated things when it comes to the quality of your life is the quality and quantity of your sleep. And I think we know that sleep is important, but we underestimate it and we don't really talk about it enough. I feel like we hear so much about exercise and meditation, and well, nowadays we hear more about mental health, but huge emphasis on physical health when it comes to diet and exercise, but we don't really hear about sleep, and sleep is really the foundation for everything. So I watched this masterclass. It blew my mind. I learned so much. It was like insane things, from like how we can heal trauma through sleep and how sleep can literally like shorten our lifespan and change our levels of empathy and emotional intelligence and our ability to learn and retain information, memory, everything. It's insane how much there is to learn. And I watched the masterclass again, took a bunch of notes, and I have a few things I just want to share with you guys that I think will really help people. And I promise you, if you apply these things or even just have them in your awareness, it's definitely not going to do you any harm. It'll definitely bring some value to your life, I promise, because after learning this, you can't unknow it, which is the advantage and disadvantage of seeking improvement in life, is that the more you learn, the more responsibility you feel to actually apply these things. And I think that even if you apply some of them on a small level, it will really help you out. So let's start. I don't know if you watched my Instagram story. I talked about how we have this idea that waking up early is like the ideal situation, the ideal way of living for people. Like the earlier you wake up, the more serious you are, the more successful you'll be, whatever. There's a lot of narratives around waking up early, but what I learned in this course is that we actually all have a chronotype, and you could actually do a quiz online. I'm going to try to find one to link here, but if I don't, then look up chronotype, quiz, sleep, chronotype, whatever. And he explains that genetically, we're either morning people or night people. It's actually a genetic thing. And if you are fighting against your genetic makeup and your chronotype, it's actually not healthy for you. You are supposed to actually live as much in alignment with this chronotype as possible. And he explains how, just based on the way we evolved back in the day when we had tribes, we needed some people to be awake while other people were asleep, so that instead of having 8 hours of everyone being vulnerable asleep, we had 4 hours of people being vulnerable, because some people needed to stay up and guard the tribe. So there are people who are part of that part of the tribe and genetically are night people and are meant to go to sleep later and wake up later, and vice versa. So that was fun fact number one that really helped me understand that I shouldn't push or pressure myself or other people to wake up early. I personally believe that I am a morning type person. I wake up naturally without an alarm. I wake up at 6, 7. So that seems true to me. And also so do my parents. So I'm going to assume that's true. But I would definitely check into that and look into that and check what your chronotype is. Okay, that was the first thing I wanted to discuss. Now, the second thing is about caffeine and alcohol before sleep. So alcohol may make you feel like it puts you to sleep, but it's actually just a sedative. It's not actually putting you to sleep, and it really harms your quality of sleep. You will not reach certain levels of deeper sleep. Obviously, I'm not an expert, so I can only explain this in the way that I speak. So excuse me if I'm not explaining this so scientifically. The terminology isn't scientific, but what I understood is that so alcohol triggers our fight or flight responses in our brain, and is obviously going to impact the ability for us to sleep well and sleep deeply, and is bad for us. So it's really important to be mindful of that. I think a lot of people think, oh, I'll drink a glass of wine, it'll help me go to sleep. I've definitely done that before when I'm like, oh, I really want to go to sleep earlier today and I'm not that sleepy, I'll drink a glass of wine. Not good for you. Second is caffeine, which I think people are pretty aware of, but I think there's some interesting things here. He talks about how caffeine will prolong your sleepiness. So what it does is it'll just build up. If you're drinking a bunch of cups of coffee at night to study, or if you're drinking a lot of coffee in the morning to wake up, eventually you're going to have a crash. I think people are pretty familiar with that, but in case you're not, that decaf coffee actually has caffeine in it. So if you have a bunch of decaf coffees, it's actually the same as having a regular coffee. And you can actually find caffeine in things like chocolate and ice cream. So it's important to check the ingredients on things that you're eating before you go to sleep. he says that the best is to cut caffeine at 2 p.m. To really make sure that it's not influencing your sleep quality. So that's something that I've been mindful of. Usually when I go to sushi dinners, I have like a green tea, and now because I know that it's very, very, very high in caffeine, that it's best not to have that before, after 2. Amazing. Another fun fact that I think so many people will be shocked to hear is that you cannot make up for sleep deprivation or like sleep debt. So if you miss a night's sleep or you miss a few hours of sleep one night and you sleep in more the next day, you're actually not doing anything for yourself. And it's actually much better for you to maintain a regular schedule. So even if you're tired, it's better to wake up at the time that you would normally wake up, be tired, let that sleepiness build up, and go back to sleep at the regular time you would go to sleep, not earlier. Because he says that really it is the regularity of your sleep and the routine or the cycle of your sleep being the same is king. He says that's the most effective way to enhance the quality of your sleep is to make sure you go to sleep at a similar time every night, or around the same time, and wake up around the same time every morning. And that means that even if you didn't sleep well, it's better to wake up with less sleep, who knew, than to sleep in. And he says that on the weekends, a lot of people will sleep in and really fuck up with their cycle. So it's really important to pick a time that's realistic. I mean, I guess some people wake up really early for work and don't want to wake up early on the weekend, but overall you will be less sleepy throughout the week, including the weekend, if you wake up at the same time and go to sleep at the same time. So it's actually smarter not to sleep in on the weekend. Another thing he says is that being sleep deprived and driving a car can be more dangerous than being drunk and driving a car. And he gives a bunch of studies and a bunch of examples here, and everything I'm saying here is really backed by science, and he gives a lot of data for this. So take what I'm saying take what I'm saying at face value, but at the same time, everything I'm saying here is really backed by science. I just do not know it sufficiently enough to explain it to you guys and go into detail on all these studies that he gives, but it's really, really interesting. So what happens if you have a bad night's sleep? So last week, the reason I actually was inspired to rewatch this was because I didn't sleep at all one night. I wasn't feeling well, I was coughing, so I couldn't sleep. And the next day I really thought to myself, should I nap? Should I not nap? Should I go to sleep earlier today? And he actually confirmed that what I did was right, not to nap and not to go to sleep earlier. Like I said, go to sleep at the same time. It's the best way to get back on track as soon as possible. Taking a nap or going to sleep earlier can kind of mess with that cycle and can cause more damage long term. I'm a huge napper, and I had like a time where I used to be like I used to wake up early and then get kind of tired around like 11, 12. So I would take 15-minute naps and loved them. He confirms that can be a great thing, that a nap that's under 20 minutes is good for you, because if you take a nap that's longer than 20 minutes, then it's actually going to make you a little bit more sleepier and harder for you to come out of. And if you already got to 3 p.m., then a nap is not beneficial to you. It'll just make it harder for you to go to sleep or stay asleep once you do go to sleep at night. Now, here's the part that I really wanted to talk about, that since my ex and I broke up, not my last boyfriend, the one before, the one who I had a lot of, that it just like ended really badly. There was cheating involved, whatever. It was a really traumatizing experience. Bless his heart. I forgive him. It's just, that's the facts. And I would have dreams about him still 3 years later that were nightmares, that were terrible, terrible nightmares. Or I'd wake up upset, I'd wake up still, emotionally triggered by these experiences that are obviously subconsciously in my mind. And recently I've been back in LA really working on myself and on my wellness and on my journey and on my spirituality and just overall feeling good, eating better, sleeping better, taking care of myself. And I had a dream one night recently where he was in it, but it was so positive and healing. And he was like answering all the questions I had about the cheating and apologizing, and even showed emotion and like cried and all these things that I wish would have happened in real life, but in my dream. And I woke up with this feeling that I was like much lighter. I just felt like I finally came to peace with it and got closure and forgave him. And he confirms in this masterclass that our minds go through this process where it does emotional healing to our trauma in our sleep, in our dreams. That's actually where we heal most. And they did a study where they took depressed adults, people who are chronically depressed or who are suffering from depression. I'm not sure which one. I don't want to say something that's not true. And they had them log a dream journal. And they showed how the people who did go through remission and heal from their depression actually had more dreams about the things that made them depressed and the things they were depressed about. And he explains how in our dreams we have an amazing ability to separate emotion from memories and actually reprocess these experiences in a way that heals us. So I thought that was super interesting, and it validated what I felt a few weeks ago. I thought I was crazy. I thought I was losing my mind, but obviously not. So that was pretty awesome. And I think people just underestimate how a lack of sleep really can fuck up your whole life. It really isn't obvious to you how much it's affecting you. And I think that's the big key here, that he says people aren't even aware of how much it is affecting them. It can be the smallest thing, from how we perceive other people's emotions, which obviously changes the way we react to them, to our ability to be emotionally intelligent and empathetic, our ability to learn information, remember information, our alertness, our health. And that brings me to the next point, that it also affects our ability to lose weight and gain muscle for people who are looking to be in a more optimal state physically. When we are sleep deprived, when we don't get a good night's sleep, then we actually burn muscle and hold on to fat. That it actually can play a really, really, really big role in in the hormones that regulate our appetite. And it will actually make us hungrier, and it'll actually make the hormone that signals when we're full less active. So all of these things come back to being able to sleep well. And I'm gonna leave you guys with all of these tips that he gave on how to have better sleep. So number one, like I said, regularity, making sure that you can go to sleep and wake up almost at the same time every day, including weekends, so that you can have a similar cycle. Our brain works on this 24-hour cycle. It's really important that you have a regular sleep schedule. Number two, obviously limit caffeine consumption to before 2 p.m. Make sure that you're not consuming it in other products. And if you're going to drink, he says to try to go to sleep when you're not drunk or tipsy. So I know people my age, and I know they're not gonna really do this, but if you do drink and it's a weekday and you're not getting belligerently drunk, then wait until you sober up to fall asleep. It'll change the way you fall asleep. When it comes to sleeping pills are similar to alcohol. They're a sedative. They're not actually going to allow you to reach certain levels of sleep, and they have a bunch of other health risks that are important to become aware of. And if you take them or are dependent on them, to talk to a doctor about how you can maybe phase off of them. Nicotine. Do not consume nicotine before bed. It's also not good for our sleep quality. He talks about falling asleep as a process that's like landing a plane. So people think that they're supposed to put their head on the pillow and fall asleep, but it's actually not like that. It's actually supposed to be a gradual process that phases us into sleep. So he recommends doing something that's like a power down routine, and that could be a meditation, that could be your shower, that could be reading before bed, but kind of doing something regularly to kind of signal that you are ready for bed, and kind of to get your brain ready for sleep so that it starts to land the plane. I liked that analogy. In addition to that, to dim the lights an hour before bed. So I love darkness, and he says light is really important. So dimming the lights an hour before bed and having natural light in the morning. So I also sleep with a curtain open because I think that it does affect my ability to wake up. Obviously, when I want to sleep in really late, then I make sure there's no light, which I'm going to stop doing because I want to wake up at the same time. But having a curtain open is important. Another one that I didn't really understand the benefits of, but I think actually maybe I did. He says to write down things you're worried about or things that are causing you anxiety or stress before you go to sleep in a journal. He called it a worry journal. It helps you kind of go to bed with more of a clear mind, like you dump it out so you're not sitting there and overthinking. The last one that I'm going to leave you guys with is super, super interesting, that when you have a hard time falling asleep, like those nights where you're just like, shit, I can't go to sleep, or you wake up in the middle of the night and can't go back to sleep, he says, get out of bed and do something else. If you're in bed, then it's going to be harder for your brain to make the distinction between wanting to sleep and not wanting to sleep once you're awake too long in bed. So he says, get up, do something else, go to a different room even, listen to a podcast. Don't be on your phone in terms of like emails, responding to things, but listen to the radio, listen to a podcast, write, read, do something with dim lighting in a different room, in a different environment. And only when you're sleepy, get back into bed. And he talks about making your bed a sacred place. So not eating in bed and not watching TV in bed and not really doing anything except for things that are intimate or sleep in your bed, so that your brain associates that with the area that you go to sleep in. So there's a lot of things I said here, and I think I got them all. Let me just make sure there's nothing else I wanted to say. Yeah, pretty much it. Awesome. So I think this is like packed with information that can be super useful to you, whether you sleep well or not, whether you thought you slept well or not. Take with this what you want, and that's it. I'm happy that I was able to share this information with you guys. Hopefully it helps you guys. Let me know if it does and if you learned anything new. I love you and have an amazing night.